Welcome to Mastered, the Business of Music, the show where we pull back the curtains on the music industry and explore the stories behind the sounds. I'm Logan, and for this episode, we're diving into the world of A&R with the VP of A&R at Universal Music Canada, Amanda Kingsland. Amanda and I have a long history together, having started our careers in radio about 20 years ago. I can't believe it's been that long. In this episode, we follow her journey and dive into the world of A&R. Amanda shares insights on what A&R is, why it's so important, and what they look for in new artists, and some tips on how to get into A&R yourself. Before we jump into the episode, I do have a favor to ask you, though. If you've been enjoying this series, I'd love it if you would give us a rating on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you're listening. It really, really helps. Now let's jump into my chat with Amanda. We're here with Amanda Kingsland. Well, thanks for joining me.
How far back are you going to go?
Well, we do have a bit of a history. I mean, I've known you for probably 20 years.
Yeah, an easy 20 years, I think.
That's gross.
Yeah, well.
I mean,
You had no facial hair.
Definitely no gray. And I had hair up here.
Right.
I mean, not a whole lot, but I had, the hair moved from up here to down here.
I feel like I probably looked very similar.
You look the exact same, and it's infuriating.
Yeah, I get that a lot, but, a few more wrinkles around the eyes and glasses, that's what happens post 35.
Yeah. I have sprinkles, glasses, no hair, gray hair, facial hair. It's a real mess over here.
It's been a great 20 years, Logan.
How 20 years can change a person. I can go on forever and talk about how we met and how I could probably do this whole intro for you, but why don't you give it a go? Who are you? How you got into the music industry?
Yeah, well, I'm Amanda Kingsland. That's who I am. I got into the music industry because I'm a music geek. I think like most people in the industry, and probably about 8 years old, I got a Walkman and my first Reba cassette. That was mine. They didn't have to, lift
For
from
people
my
who don't know, what's a Walkman?
Oh, right. Yeah. It was separate from the phone that I I just I was absolutely absorbed by music, and specifically country music. It's definitely been my favorite for forever. And at 8 years old, decided I'm going to be in the music industry. And that sort of looked differently in my head over the years. I mean, for the first probably 10 years of that, I was like, I'm going to be Reba. But I don't have the hair to be Reba. So,
no one does.
And then it pivoted to being a producer, and I did my post-education in audio engineering and spent a couple minutes in live sound and recording choirs and, setting up mic systems for people. And that sort of constantly had me running into the radio station that I loved growing up. We had one country radio station here through Ottawa and the Valley growing up, and you saw them everywhere. They were just such a part of community, and the reason why I had access to the artists that I loved, and I truly believed that. And I was running into them all the time, starting to work in the music space. And somebody finally said to me, hey, come be an intern. I was 18. Come be an intern and hand out stickers and put up flags, and you can come to all this stuff for free. And so I think I did 3 months of being an intern, and that's where I learned the ecosystem of radio. I didn't go into radio school, so I really didn't know that, a DJ on the air didn't just grab a CD and put it in and play the songs. I learned about the intentional thought process behind programming radio stations, and that there's conditions of license, and that there's rules, and that there's theories to make people listen longer or choose your station. So I really became fascinated by that and thought I'd be really good at that, because I made a really great mix CD. So I figured I could program radio. And I
love making a mixtape.
Right? There's you're good at something. So spent 8 years doing everything I could in radio, promo, and going on sales trips, and doing a lot of technical stuff, setting up all our live on locations and opping shows with my tech background, and really with the goal to become a music director. And I just really believe in creating your own opportunities. So I saw an opportunity when the radio stations flipped to a new software. I was like, hey, wait, we're all going to be on the same playing field now. Nobody's really going to have more experience than me in using this particular software. So I was on mat leave and I downloaded a demo of the software and the manual and learned everything I could. So when I came back from mat leave, I volunteered to cover people's vacations just to show I could do the job because there really isn't, I think in like a lot of cases, there isn't always an entry level position for a certain job. And so there's entry level positions in radio or in media, but not necessarily like to become a music director
Hmm.
or, to become a station
The path
manager.
there
So
is not linear for anybody, I don't think.
right. And so I kinda just created a path and covered people's vacations and spent a lot of time, volunteering to do things so that I could prove that I could do it. And when the opportunity came, I became the music director, um, and then things snowballed really fast, and I became a music director for 1 station and 3 and 5 and 7, and then ultimately, all I think it was 9 that Rogers owned at the time and programmed the entire country chain, and again, with, like, the tech geek in me, spent a lot of time helping beta test different programs and helping, figure things out, but really my passion for elevating artists and their opportunities within the Canadian ecosystem, seeing the discrepancy at the time and even still in women, on the charts and on the airwaves, around tables, in comparison to men was something that, like, was really eye-opening to me as I continued to work in the industry, and as a mom of 2 girls, felt really compelled to figure out a little bit more. So, I spent a lot of time just, like, stirring things up, I guess, in the Canadian country music industry between, making sure that Canadians had better opportunities at number ones and being on the air and having visibility to making sure that women were represented more. And that led to, just my relationship with a lot of artists and management teams and labels. And in 2021 is when I made the jump from media over to the label side to specifically to build a country roster at Universal Music Canada. At the time, they didn't really have a full roster, and it had been a hot minute since they did. So was tasked with building a country roster. And yeah, the first few artists I signed made me look real good. And I, ended up overseeing, multiple genres and then ended up just this year becoming the VP of the creative department. So all of our Canadian artists and Canadian music filter in under, my team, which is a really cool and
That's
fun
really
and
cool.
pinch myself job for sure.
It must have been equal parts scary, but also really exciting to come into to a company like Universal to build a roster from scratch, and they're, like, relying on you to find these people and to build it.
Absolutely. I mean, it's funny because the past president of the company who hired me, Jeffrey, we used to always say, like, we brought you in and we took this leap of you took a leap of faith on us. And I was like quietly being like, don't let them know they took a leap of faith on me, you know?
You're
And
like, "You're
so
right, I did."
yeah, totally. But no, I mean, I appreciated the reputation I had built over the 15 years in the industry. But yeah, it was, it was nerve wracking. It was all new. It was also in COVID. So
Mm,
I did everything like this, over Zoom or on phone calls. I had never met my boss face to face before I started working for him.
crazy.
Um, yeah, so it was just a very different world, I spent a couple months working from home before I set foot in a Universal building, and so it was, yeah, lots of different learnings, lots of scariness, but yeah, I love a challenge and I love being told something can't be done or yeah, I do everything with a bit of a chip on my shoulder, I think.
Well, I mean, even just, like, having grown up professionally with, with you alongside you, because we kind of, like, had a similar trajectory and started the same kinda way. I could definitely always see that you were, like, wanted to get involved with everything, wanted to know a bit of everything, and, I mean, for everyone listening, take listen of this episode because Amanda has so much experience, more just, even outside of just, like, A&R. You've always kind of been, like, someone to kinda, like, look at, like, "What's Amanda doing?" Because that's what I wanna do.
Well, I appreciate that. But again, like, I just really believe in creating your own opportunities. And so, I wanted to see change at a provincial level. So I joined the provincial organization and I wanted to be active in the evolution of Canadian music in Canada. So I became part of, the CCMA board and I lobbied to be part of a lot of different things that gave me the opportunity to, like, not just complain about something, but try to do things differently. And so yeah, I have my hands in a lot of different pots, but I think that I'm a big believer in, like, if I understand what you do or if I understand what everybody on the team does, then, like, I'm gonna be better at what I do as well.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, just get involved in a lot of stuff.
So, jumping into your current role and what you do, for everyone listening, what is A&R?
Technically, it stands for artists and repertoire. Um, I think a lot of people aren't even sure about that part. But basically, we're the conduit from an artist into a record label or into whatever distribution system that they have. And I think that the core thing, if I break it down really simply, is I go and I find artists that we want to work with, and then once we've committed to working with them, I help them figure out their sonic vision, help source songs, help if they're into writing themselves, make sure that they have the best collaborators or the best team around them, and then help plan out how the world gets to hear that music. So it's kind of the best.
What does your day to day look like? I mean, I'm sure it's different every day, but on a typical day, what does that
Yeah,
look like when you're not stuck on a train?
when I'm not stuck on a train. I mean, I get a lot done on the train. I really do. I think that, it is every day is very different. It's so much about relationships. You have to be in a place to, pick up the phone and talk to anybody. And I mean, I can talk to a rock and have a great conversation. So I can talk to everybody. Um, it's a very personable job. You wanna make sure that you're representing your artist and your company and making sure people think of you when they have great songs or, that they wanna collaborate with your artist. So, it's a lot of relationship building, and it's a lot of, reaching out and following up and doing research on who would be great with this person or that person or, and it's a lot of chasing. It's a lot of, we got songs on the go and you're chasing producers or you're pushing timelines or you're figuring out, what thank yous an artist wants in a record or what set list we're gonna perform here, here, and here. And so I think that, um, we have amazing teams that really help build our artists, their vision, and make it all come to life. But I would say, like, the day-to-day of an A&R is sort of that, like, fundamental first step in the music journey of trying to make sure you understand what your artist is hoping for and then being able to help them execute it really when it comes to the music side of things. Get the right songs, have the songs sound the way they want them to, and then get them out to the world.
So, historically, A&R was about going into clubs and finding new music that way or finding, people submitting music. What does it look like now in the world of streaming and social media?
Yeah, I think A&R and scouting looked different and the same. I think that, it'd be I don't know what the percentage is off the top of my head, but I know that for sure a lot of the acts that I've personally signed or chased in the last while have been based off of relationships or seeing them live or, somebody that I love and trust in the industry being like, you should check this person out or you should check that person out. All that to say that there certainly is tools and opportunities for us to be using social media or the web or different platforms where people can post their talent, so that we can also cast a wider net and see
Hmm.
more great artists and their talent. So, I don't have to, be in a club in Halifax to figure out who's great in Halifax. So there's a lot of tools. But I do think that maybe for a second, especially through COVID, when there wasn't necessarily all elements of that open, there was a lot more of things popping off on TikTok or YouTube or whatever the case might be, and people getting signed and things like that. I think we definitely look for moments, but I would say that our team is really interested in building careers. And so although there may be a moment somewhere, we like to make sure that we can see what the next moment would be as well with that artist. And sometimes people are only interested in a moment, and that's totally
Mhm.
fine too, as long as everybody's on the same page, and expectations are understood around that. But I'd say for the most part, 99% of what we do is we're building artists that want to have careers, want to tour music and stand in front of people and sing that music for them. So, um, there's a lot of tools to use now. It can be really overwhelming. We have an amazing team of people that understand the tools way better than I do, but a lot of it still comes down to, like, 99% of it comes down to relationships. You wanna like the people you work with, you wanna believe in them, you have to believe in them, and so you can't fake that, you can't hide behind a keyboard and promise things, like, it still happens face to face for sure.
Yeah, I've talked with this with a few people. You might have been one of them actually. I don't know. But I noticed like during COVID that there were a lot of signings for all labels or artists had moments on TikTok like you said and signings happened, but then these artists kind of when it comes down to it, when the world opened up, they probably didn't have the stage legs to sustain it.
Yeah, or even, like, engaged fans. Like, it's
Mm,
one thing to be part of and we know this, like, you're scrolling and you're seeing 2, 3, 5 seconds of something, and you may like it or you may stop, but to be an engaged fan involves a lot more, you know? You wanna make everybody feel like they're part and they invest in what you're doing, and so, I think there was that, and I also think that, like, when you have a really big moment, and there's no build up to that, using that as a jumping off point is pretty unrealistic when you
mhm.
don't have the foundation,
A big moment
beneath
leads to
it.
a big fall, really.
Yeah, often, not always, but
Not
often, and
always.
so I do think that that happened a lot more, and there's just, we're back to a place where we can see people live and we can talk to them and although that courtship sometimes takes a lot longer, and in really, like, high demand situations or competitive situations, teams are trying to move fast to move on something that we all of a sudden see and think is really, really cool, and I've been in those situations too where there's a high demand for something, but overall, like, you really are just trying to find and build really great artists, and as a team, we really believe heavily in, you know, finding the best Canadian talent and getting it out to the world.
So speaking of finding that talent and finding new talent, what are some qualities or signals that stand out to you and your team, when it comes to looking at new talent?
Yeah, we have a substantial list of indicators. No, I would say, like, no two artists check all of the same boxes or need to. Everybody has different goals and strengths, and so that looks different for every artist. But there's certainly indicators that we look to. Like I said, we are the Canadian division of Universal Music, and we truly believe in breaking Canadian artists to the world. So that's a huge piece for us is that we're looking for Canadian talent. Um, we wanna see people who work really hard. Like, the last thing I wanna do is bring somebody in and then I work harder than them,
Mm,
because if I want it more than they do, that's not gonna work either, so work ethic is a really big piece of that. We love to see hustle, we love to see that, like, when our big machine gets behind something and starts to push it, things can move quickly, and it involves a lot of work, and that's something that, you can't teach somebody, they need to be able to do. Um and so that's certainly something that we're always looking for. Yeah, and then, like, talent, like, being great
I
is,
mean,
like,
yeah,
price of admission, right? Like, it's just there's so much talent and competition that, like, being great is, like, can't be questionable, so that's not even, like, something we really mention, it's not even it just has to
it's
be
like
there.
implied,
So
yeah.
yeah, it has to be there. So, that seems silly to even say, but it's true, and I really believe in making sure that people can, perform live. You have to be able to stand in front of people, especially in a lot of the genres that I've spent a lot of years working in. It's really important. It's really important to be able to play your songs and convey your emotions and get people to not just buy you the first ticket, but come and see you again 6 months
Mhm.
later and 6 months after that, and, yeah,
Buy
that's
your
really
merch, buy your more tickets, buy everything,
yeah, for sure.
and share it out. Um, Something popped into my head and now it popped right back out. So we're gonna move on. Um, how hands-on is A&R? Oh, no, here's what popped into my head. Is there a difference really in A&R between a major record label, an indie record label, and someone who's not even signed?
I mean, I think A&R is artists and their music, and so I think that, like, fundamentally, it's the same in the sense of, like, you're looking for whether you're a major label or an independent, you're hoping to find artists to work with, and you're gonna help them build the best music catalog they can have. So I think fundamentally that's the same. I think that probably from A&R to A&R, from person to person, there's a difference in how people do that, and everybody's skill set. I'm definitely, not under any illusion that, like, I'm great at everything, and so even
No
on
way.
our team, we have, a complementary, display of skills, and so I think that what people bring to the table for their artists, may be different, which is why I just think, strong teams win. I don't A&R up any project by myself. I may be the vocal piece of that, which I'm sure is hard to believe that I could be the one talking about it all. But I think that, I may be the one that's communicating with the artist and trying to figure out the vision, but, like, I'm using resources and relationships and networking and bringing a lot of people into the mix. I don't think that's different across any fold. I mean,
Mm,
or any business. Like, whatever you're doing, you're usually relying on, relationships and networking and other people's skills as well. So I think A&R at its core is the same across the board. I think people execute it differently, though.
fair. So once an artist is signed, how does you and your team and A&R in general, how does that help elevate their career? What kind of support happens behind the scenes?
Yeah, I mean, I think that it makes all the difference in the world, in my very biased opinion, because, you have a bit of a filter system that can keep your vision at the forefront that lets you filter your music through. So one thing you'll see about a lot of artists, whether they're musicians or not, like you hear this all the time, like their songs are their babies, or they work heavily to bring something forward. And so, they're not always looking at it objectively based on whatever some of the goals are they've laid out for themselves. If their goal is to be on the biggest playlists or the biggest radio stations and they bring a song that is really, 7 minutes long and has a 48-second intro and super long build up and like probably not going to be the most commercially successful thing. So sometimes it's nice to say, hey, like this is really cool and it could live here, or what if we did this to achieve other goals? Or it's just really nice to have that like filtration system for people. And then sometimes you come up with a great idea, like wouldn't it be cool if this person collaborated, and then the A&R can go and make that relationship and ask those questions. And, I would be lying if I said it didn't make a difference when you have somebody from Universal Music making a call for you versus an
Yeah.
artist that's still emerging. Like, those relationships, and they matter. So, I think that, that is certainly a game changer for artists, and being able to help you, like, sort and figure out your thoughts. I mean, one of my biggest things I really hone in on when we're building records is, like, you know, is there texture in this? What else do you have to say? If we've decided that your brand and what you bring to the world is A, B, and C, well, is A, B, and C on the record, or are we only showing A?
Hmm.
So, I think that just having somebody that helps and reminds you of the vision and the overall goals you've set out for yourself when it comes to your music is really, um, is a really nice thing to have. And it doesn't necessarily have to be an A&R, but that's certainly, where I step in. So, um, yeah, I think the role is really useful in the elevation of someone's career because it helps keep them on track and sometimes filter other things away.
This is going to be a bit of a tangent, but I'm curious to know your opinion on this because you mentioned records. What is is there still space in music to put out a full record? Because people are often just like now just doing single, 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 single.
Yeah,
I
I
would
mean,
just
I
love
think
your opinion.
absolutely. We've put out a couple of really great and big records this year. I think that, you have to understand your audience and, are you at a point where you have an audience that has an appetite for a full record? Um, I think we'd be silly to not acknowledge that, like, we've conditioned people to have a pretty short attention span and overall, like, a lot of things to consume our time and our attention. So that sometimes is a conversation is like, is your fan base ready for a record? Are they gonna sit through 6 new songs or 8 new songs? Or, in the case of a record we just put out, it was like, yeah, 8 new songs. So I think that, like, you have to understand your audience. You have to know what they want from you, and sometimes a whole bunch of singles helps bring people in with every single, and then when you drop a record, there's people there to consume that, and the
Mm,
last thing you wanna do is pour your heart and soul into a project, and I see that happen. Our artists work so hard, our teams work so hard on these projects. You want people there, you want them to show up and listen. So I think there's space for it. I just think that you need to be smart about making sure that your audience is there and ready for it and wants it. And so I think you have
so
to do a little bit of like feeling things out and testing the waters on when your audience is ready for it or when they want it to happen. because it
So it's
is a
about
build.
timing, really.
Mhm. I think so.
All right, back to what we're our regularly scheduled programming.
Does that satisfy your need f to have a tangent about records?
I am satisfied.
Great.
Um, what are some steps that artists can take to prepare themselves for label attention?
Well, that's a great question. I think sometimes, like, we see moments or we see artists doing really well at certain things. Here, I'm gonna my brain is, like, firing all of these different answers. So here's 2 things I would say. Nobody has to be good at everything, especially when you're starting out or you're independent and you're building things by yourself. So figure out what you are great at and what people are leaning into and do that really, really well. And then figure out the places where you're not doing things really well and figure out either a substitution or a team that can help you or a person or whatever you can do to supplement that. But if you're really great live, if you love it and you can stand in front of people and sing and you get something back from them, lean into that. Figure
Mhm,
out how to make that group of people go and save your profile or save your music, pre-save your music, add it to their playlist, whatever the case might be. Engage with that audience and then grow from there. If you're really great on social media and you're able to show your personality and people lean into that, amazing. Figure out a way to get those people to pay attention to you and to engage with you. At some point, you have to have your hand in all of those lanes. But starting out and getting attention, I would say that it is meaningful when you can be really great at something. It's memorable to be great at something. So rather than divvy up your attention into a lot of things, um, that would be my advice for sure. When you see something working, lean in,
mm,
lean into it. Um, and then, when you talked about getting attention, I think that like making it easy for people is important. Like I said, there's a lot of things to occupy time and attention. And so assuming that I'm going to come across your video and then I'm going to follow you and then I'm going to reach out and message you and then I'm like, maybe, it happens a lot. I follow a lot of people and I reach out to a lot of people, but
but there's a lot of people out there.
there's a lot of people. And so making it easy, like showing up and shaking somebody's hand at an event, not being afraid to do that, or following up with an email where there's a direct link to your music and it's right in front of me. Or, I think all of that's really important. And I really do give a lot of my time to people as long as I feel they're not wasting it. I'm happy to talk to everybody. And so I think that it was always my recommendation when I worked in radio too. And people were like, "How do I get my song to you?" I was like, "Well, send it to me, but make it easy. Not just like,
Mhm,
hey, my song's out today, go find it." Put a link there too. Like if it's one
I
less
know.
click away.
Like, my inbox, people send us, like, front porch music all the time, and it's
Mhm,
like, no one you've ever heard of, and da 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 da, and
sure.
my biggest pet peeve is when I just get an email saying, "Hello, team. I have a new song coming out. Do you wanna hear it?" Like, "Probably not."
Yeah.
Like, just, like
Yeah.
like,
Now you're
send me
gonna
the
send me
like
another email if I say
yeah,
yes, if I reply. So
send me a
yeah,
link
I
yeah,
think
like mhm,
make it easy for other people. Don't assume people are going to invest in you until you invest in yourself, and that's clear by you putting forward the effort. So, yeah, again, I'm a big fan of and a true believer in create your own opportunities. So, you and I were both we gave a lot of time at the CCMAs this past year, which we do a lot, and we were at round tables and we met a lot of people. And I think of like I probably talked to 60 people in the span of 2 hours, and I'll tell you, like, I got less than a dozen emails after that. Those dozen people got my time though. And
mhm,
so, following through, making it easy, I think that's how you get attention as well as, being great at something. If I see you're really good live and all of a sudden I'm hearing from people, "Oh my gosh, did you see this thing?" Like leaning into what you're good at is obviously important and there has to be that sort of, admission price of having talent and that has to be there. But yeah, I think that the persistence, the we often laugh and say it's an unhealthy desire to win or an unhealthy desire to want this
mhm,
is needed, and in that comes, annoying people like you and I all the time because you should.
mhm. That's been a common theme across every episode pretty much that we've done for this series of whether it's talking to labels, media, um, concert like promoters, bookers, all that has been just show up. Make it easy, show up, and just say hi. Put the time in.
Yeah,
Mhm,
absolutely. I mean, I met a lot of really great people I meet great people all the time. I was just at an event, the night before last, and, like, I love talking to people and happy to give everybody my email and my phone number and, like but then it's on you. Like, I'm
mhm.
not gonna chase you, it's on you. So, I think that, yeah, I think that that's really important. If you really, really want it, create opportunities to be seen and show people what you do really well.
So speaking of doing what you of what you do really or knowing what you do really well, and we talked about social media and streaming and all of that. As an A&R team, how important is it to you when you're looking at new artists, streaming numbers, and social media analytics?
The biggest importance to me is I think, like, the correlation between them or, like, the correlation between being present and having engagement. So, like, it's a big deal when you have a whole bunch of views on a video, but you actually that's actually correlated to a bunch of people streaming your song. And so, we often talk about, um, having fans and having views is passive until they engage. And
Mhm.
so being able to convert, a view or somebody um liking something into them streaming you or into them showing up for you, that correlation is very important. It's super valuable. And so we definitely look to that. Um, people seeking you out, like typing in your name versus just having you come across their feed. Yeah, it's a difference between like a song coming on the radio and you liking it and not turning it off to you going and looking up that artist and saving their
Mm.
song. Like, that's a very different action. And so, we look for the latter. We look for those that we really like that says a lot when you get people who are not just listening, but, like, going and saving your music or looking you up. And so that correlation between, moments that you can create for yourself on social media to people investing in you, whether it's engaging in your content or saving your music or streaming your music, that's really it's important for sure.
Do you have any advice for artists trying to find and nurture their sound and finding, like, their own artist identity? Like, just some advice for people who are just starting out trying to figure it all out?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's always important to have like North Stars and understand sort of like which lane and which genre do I love? What lane of that genre? Every genre is really big. So like what
Mhm.
lane of that genre speaks to me and I'm not saying everybody has to stay in a lane, but it is very helpful when building a brand to
So
understand what
helpful
that
for the
vision
marketing
is.
side.
Absolutely. And then once you're a little bit more established and there's people there that know and love you, you can probably start to branch out a little bit and not have to stay in a lane. But I do think that at least understanding where again, leaning into what you're good at or where you sound best or where you're able to find audience, knowing that is really important. Um, and so, yeah, I mean, if you want to be an artist or a star, like you're building, it's a product, you're a brand, and that has to be, um, it has to be, memorable. I always talk about the sticky things that make people come back or make people talk about you. Those are important. And so if, you know, uh, as much as it's important to understand your North Stars, and I say that because I really hate hearing or dislike when people are like, especially in radio, I used to get this all the time. Like, here's my new song, you'll love it. It sounds just like X. And
Ugh.
like, I'm already playing X on the
Yeah, I
radio.
don't need to play them again.
And it's great if your music lands amongst your inspirations. 100% that's going to happen. But figuring out what sets you apart is really important to your brand. And even if it's similar to somebody else, that's fine, but, like, talk about it like it's yours
Mhm.
and own it. What are you owning as part of your brand? Obviously, there's a lot of crossover. Many a country artists love to fish and hunt and drink beer. That's okay. It's very much part of the format, and so it's cool if you love that too, but what is your angle on it, or how do you bring it forward so that your song about hunting and fishing and loving every day is different than the other one that was just on the air? And so I just think it's important to understand the space you occupy and how you're gonna communicate that to others. People who, spend a lot of time and have far better skills than I at marketing, like you, will probably say the same thing. Like, you need to figure out who you are and how you're relating that to people, and it's not any different when it comes to music. If you drop a song and on one hand it's this acoustic, really beautiful melodic song, and then the next one you drop is some like headbanging heavy
Hmm.
metal plugged in amped up song, people are really not going to know what to expect of you. And one or the other may be memorable, but you as an artist may not then. So,
Even like the
figuring yourself out.
yeah, like the psychology behind it, like of the marketing of it is really fascinating. Like it's really confusing to an audience and to sell it to an audience when when you're not focused.
Exactly. And I would say like, really the best artists and our favorite artists, if we talk about if we just say one name right now, you and I probably would use the same keywords to describe that artist. And that's because the branding has been done really well. And so they're
Hmm.
memorable and we know what we expect from that artist. If I say Eric Church, you and I are probably going to use very similar words to describe who we feel he is. Neither one of us know him super well, but we know what he wants us to know of him because that marketing has been done so well.
And even when they do deviate out a little bit from what their typical is, there's still that anchor, the keywords that they still apply, even
Mhm.
if it's a little bit different or evolved.
One of the things I always recommend to people, and I'm a really like physical person. I love to see things and I love to write things down, but I do encourage people to write down on paper the words they want people to say about them. And then does your music help people get that? Do they get that from you, you know? And so I think that like it's the same thing from like when you think of yourself as a person, if you're thinking of yourself as a brand, what are your brand pillars? What's your promise to people? What do you stand for? What are they going to know about you? And if you write those things down and then you look at your songs and you're like, "Oh, they're not getting any of that from me in these songs," whether it's from the topics of the songs or from the lane the songs are in, or even if like that song that you wrote sounds really, really great to a younger audience, but you think you actually appeal to an older audience or what you stand for appeals to this group of people over here and your music appeals to this group of people over there, that disconnect's not going to benefit you.
So all the artists listening, you have homework right now. Go write down the words that you want people to say about you.
Yeah, I think it's good for everybody, you know? I
Yeah.
think sometimes our intentions of what we're trying to how we're trying to come across aren't necessarily people's perception of you. So it's interesting sometimes, like, if I were to write down words about myself and I asked you to do the same, would they at all be the same? I
Hmm.
think a lot of them would be because I've spent a lot of time on it as a leader and with artists, thinking about it from my own point of view as well. But I think that that's a really useful exercise at every stage. Do it about your projects. If you're making a full record, like, what do you want people to get out of this record? Write all those words down and then figure out, when you start showing it to your family and your friends, ask them to write down words and see if any of them overlap. Otherwise, you probably have a little more work to do.
Careful with friends; they'll have different words for you.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, pick carefully.
Yeah. um. So this podcast is also, we're talking to industry people who want to maybe break into the industry from a business side. Um. So when thinking about the people that you surround yourself with, that you work with, for someone who's looking to get into A&R, what skills or traits do you think make someone really great at?
Hmm. I mean, I think when I think of my team, they all have their own superpowers for sure. I mean, I think that you'd be at a disadvantage if you didn't love to talk to people. If it made you uncomfortable to just pick up the phone and cold call somebody or have to champion something or sell somebody on something or sell them to not do something, probably was going to be a difficult position for you. But I think that there's people on my team whose superpowers are the data side of things and can, like, really digest information that way. That is not my strong suit, and
Mhm.
so I lean on those people, and, like, they make really great A&Rs. I think that, there's people on my team who have such a technical ear and approach to music. That's also necessary. There are people on the team that absolutely love the logistical side of what we do, whether it's scheduling writing sessions and putting together these bigger ideas and plotting things out and following timelines and using spreadsheets. I also am a geek for a spreadsheet, but that's also important. So, I think that like there are skills that, you have to love music. You need to be passionate about music. And I would say it does you much better if you are an extroverted or outgoing person, for sure. But yeah, I think like just loving music and wanting to champion people is like the price of admission.
So what are the first steps for someone who wants to get into A&R? Where would be a good place for them to start?
I think there's a lot of great entry points in the music industry, but I really just think it's showing up places, talking to people, networking. Like you're always going to need a network. You're going to need people to go to bat for you. You're going to want people to call you and be like, "Hey, I've got this song. Do you want to listen to it and give me feedback?" Offering your time to people is a gift that will keep on giving. Like you giving your time to people obviously assists them, but I'm a big advocate of that coming back to help you as well in what you're doing. Tell people what you want. I think a lot of us get wrapped up in like not wanting to be too forward or, you know, put our goals on other people. And I understand that. But if you really want to be an A&R, tell people that, ask for opportunities. Um, and so I think that sometimes, nobody's great at playing guess what's in my head. And so if you don't tell people that that's your goal, then it's a little bit harder to get to. So I think that like letting people help, asking for help, offering up your own time. A&R, again, it's really about networking, championing people. So go champion people, go find people that you love, offer your time to listen to their music or to connect them to others or show up for them. And then, let it grow and grow and grow. But I think, showing up and telling people what you want and like just do the job you want, show up at those events, shake those hands, follow up with those emails, build your network, believe in yourself, bet on yourself.
So we're coming to the end here, and I've asked this question to most of our guests. I forgot a few, but if there's a new artist out there who's just thinking about how to get started, they're feeling overwhelmed, what are some words of encouragement that you would give them?
Oh, yeah, I mean, bet on yourself. Be persistent. Um, Look at the things you do well. Take an inventory of what you do really well, what you like about yourself and what you're making in your music, and what you would rather not do, where you need support. I think the more you know about what you're trying to do and how you fit into that, where you need support on that, the better you're going to be. So I think doing the homework on it is certainly important. Um, and it's a long game. As much as we see artists who all of a sudden are famous overnight, that's not how it works. It's a lot
Overnight
of
is usually
years.
10 years in the making.
Absolutely, absolutely. They call Nashville a 10-year town. The music industry, like I think the average we see right now is usually about 7 years for an artist to start to take off. And so, yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of opportunities to be discouraged, but like celebrate the wins, figure out what you're good at, lean into that, and yeah, look for opportunities and create them yourself.
Love it. Thanks so much, Amanda. So everyone listening, next time you're at an event, make sure you go say hi to Amanda. She's very approachable. I can tell you myself.
Yeah, absolutely.
This is Mastered by Front Porch Music. Join Logan Miller and Jenna Weiser, the hosts of CCMA nominated On the Porch with Front Porch Music, for this mini-series podcast offering crash courses on the ins and outs of the music industry. Expert guests from across the Canadian music landscape sit down with Jenna and Logan to discuss labels, getting your shows booked, landing festival slots, A&R, social media, and so much more. Mastered by Front Porch Music is a Front Porch production, hosted by Logan Miller and Jenna Weiser. Mastered by Front Porch Music is produced by Logan Miller, Jenna Weiser, and Jason Saunders. The theme song for this podcast was written, produced, and performed by Keith Hunt.